to Nancy, dope, color TV, and violent revolution. Jerry Rubin is the leader of 850 million yippies. In a previous life, Jerry was a sports reporter and a straight college student. He dropped out, visited Cuba and moved to Berkeley, where he became known as the P.T. Barnum of the Revolution, organizing spectacular events such as Marathon Vietnam Day marches, teach-ins, international days of protest. Jerry lived for 3 years near the University of California, working as an outside agitator to destroy the university. He ran for mayor of Berkeley and came within one heart attack of winning in a 4-man race. Jerry moved to New York in October 1967 and became project director of the March on the Pentagon. He appeared before witch hunt committees of Congress dressed as an American Revolutionary War soldier, a bare-chested, armed guerrilla and Santa Claus. With Abby Hoffman, Jerry created the Yippies as a fusion between the hippies and the New Left, and helped MJFialize the demonstrations during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in August 1968. The U.S. government indicted Jerry and 7 other revolutionaries for conspiracy to destroy the Democratic Convention, resulting in the conspiracy, perhaps the most important political trial in the history of the country. Jerry wants to hear your reactions to this book. If you want to write him about that or anything else, write, Jerry Rubin, C/O Brandt and Brandt, 101, Park Avenue, New York, New York, 10017. Read this book stonedy. Contents. Child of America 12. Elvis Presley killed Ike. Eisenhower 17. The Middle of the Beast 20. FSM, shut the motherfucker down. 21. Become a 100-foot-tall on student 24. Troop trains coming through our town. Trot IA 32. It's gotta be more fun to be in the revolution than out of it. 37. A movement that isn't willing to risk injuries, even deaths, isn't for shit. 39. Any fool can run for mayor. 47. We are all human beings. 54. HUAC creates subpoenas envy and meets Thomas Jefferson. 57. Hollywood casts the peace movement for the Battle of the Pentagon. 66. How to be a yippie. 81. Our leaders are 7-year-olds. 87. Don't trust anyone over 40. 89. Long hair, and Sadie, is a communist plot. 92. Keep pot illegal. 98. Ho Chi Minh is a yippie agent. 102. Every revolutionary adds a color TV. 106. Fuck God. 109. Ideology is a brain disease. 113. Money is shit. Burning money, looting and shoplifting can get you high. 117. I agree with your tactics, I don't know about your goals. 125. Revolution is theater in the streets. 132. George Wallace is Bobby Kennedy in drag. 144. Are the Kennedys assassination prone? 149. Free the prisoners and jail the judges. 152. Sirhan is a yippie. 161. The Battle of Chicago. 168. The nomination and election of Pigasus, the pig, as President of the United States. 176. My bodyguard turns out to be a Chicago pig. 181. How American Airlines, Richard Eichson, Spiro Agnew, Strom Thurmond, John Mitchell, Walter Cronkite, CBS, BC, ABC, Uncle Ho, and a million spirits conspired to bum Chicago down. 186. The Academy Award of Protest Acceptance Speech. 191. Yippie Panther Pipe Dream. 02. 195. HUAC digs chase painted tits but bars Santa Claus. 201. Burn down the schools. 209. Welcome home, Jerry. 216. People's Park will rise again. 224. It's against the law to pee in the streets. 231. We cannot be co-opted because we want everything. 235. We are all Eldridge Cleaver. 241. The Viet Cong are everywhere. 246. Scenario for the future / Yippieland. 253. I started writing an introduction to this book by Jerry Rubin. I fucked with the introduction for a few days, but couldn't get into it right. I was writing shit like this. I first met Jerry Rubin, then a few positive things happened, among which I turned on. Then I started fucking with the introduction again and suddenly realized that what was wrong, what was bugging me, was that I was trying to write an introduction to Jerry's book. Fuck that shit. This is no introduction. I'm just glad for this chance to run some shit down, cut up some things, in the context of relating to Jerry. So right on. The first chapter of Jerry's book is entitled Child of America. That's another one of Jerry's trips. It is impossible for him to be a child of America no matter how he spells it. Jerry is not an Indian. He is a descendant of the invaders. I am in favor of a dictatorship by the Indians. It's their land. I don't care how few of them there may be left. If there is only one single Indian left, I am in favor of making him an absolute monarch, even if he is an idiot. The Indians have a right to that. I am not interested in any arguments to the contrary. All arguments have been thoroughly refuted by the heroic resistance against the European invaders put up by the Indians led by great leaders such as Tecumseh, Sitting Bull, and Geronimo. But Jerry is a child of something. He calls that America. What the Indians really feel about that is not taken into consideration. Okay. Jerry is a child of the America that does not. 6. Take the Indians into consideration. We need language that condenses all this shit into phrases. Most of America's history can be boiled down to one 5-letter word, blood. Jerry is the child of blood. What a child. Scornful of his elders who are too old even for the fountain of youth to help. Too old in their ways, too old in their values, too old in their pride, and too old in their avarice. And too old in their belief in the power of their world. Jerry wants to up the age of trust to 40 years old. I want to lower it to 20. When I was nominated for President by the Peace and Freedom Party, Jerry Rubin was my choice for vice. I had done a little soul searching. I asked myself, one night while I was lying awake thinking about what I could do for my country, if I were elected President J, who would I want for vice? Who is the man or woman I would want to succeed me if I became unable to carry out the duties of the presidency? The answer came like a flash, like a bolt of lightning, Jerry. If everybody did exactly what Jerry suggests in this book, if everybody carried out Jerry's program, there would be immediate peace in the world. America, in particular, would cease to bleed. I do not believe that everybody is going to follow Jerry's program, which makes me sad, because that means we must think in terms of alternatives. But that is no big thing. I always think in terms of alternatives to all programs, suggestions, whispers, etc. There is something wrong with all programs. They can all be improved. I always try to support the best program I know about. After the program I support, I like Jerry's program best. So I support Jerry's program now, because we must keep an alternative near at hand, within easy reach. Humanity cannot afford to get locked into any program, but humanity always functions on the basis of a program. A program of many scripts, each little group of actors following the script around which they are united. I can unite with Jerry Rubin around a marijuana cigarette, around some good music, around being cool, around a profound contempt for pigs, and around the need for moving to change the world in which we live. I can unite with Jerry around hatred of pig judges, around hatred of capitalism. 7. Around the total desire to smash what is now the social order in the United States of America. Around the dream of building something new and free upon the ruins. Although I do not relate to Santa Claus, it doesn't bother me that Jerry appeared at the BUAC bearings dressed as Santa Claus. I was glad and it made me feel good when Jerry freaked those pigs out and blew their bearing up their ass. Elijah Muhammad says that the devils try to steal a hearing. These pigs have to steal their hearings. They are totally dependent upon spies, agents, informers, wit email, napes, and cop-outs for their information, because they themselves are out of it. The geeks against whom Jerry makes war, we make war, are culturally, intellectually, politically, economically, and emotionally incapable of getting close to the action. They need a base in the terrain of someone else's brain. They have many bases. Oppressed, exploited, and colonized people are colonized, oppressed and exploited on all levels. Intellectually, politically, economically, emotionally, sexually, and spiritually we are oppressed, exploited, and colonized. Some of us work for the pigs. Some of us are pigs. Some of us kill pigs. All of us are fucked up. The oppressed are fucked up for not fighting decisively to end their own oppression, and the oppressors are fucked up for resisting the change. Jerry Rubin fights hard against the pigs and their world of blood. Buie said that within a short time the Black Panther Party will have millions of members. Jerry said that the kindergarten children are a rising wave of yippies. And judging from some kindergarten teachers whom I know personally, I say Jerry is right. I know Buie is right. If Buie and Jerry are correct about the future, then it is easy to understand why rapacious pigs need all the hearings they can get. It's easy to understand how a dirty motherfucking pig feels the oinkish need to tap telephones, to sneak up on you and take you by surprise, like a hunter. Just picture a lousy pig stealing a bearing over a tapped phone. What the fuck is he into? Who the fuck does he think he is, with his big ears? Jerry makes us laugh at these pigs from their comic exposure, because he knows that once the people laugh at the king, laugh at their rulers, see them as a preposterous 8. Joke and fraud, the people will next rise up and kill pigs and destroy their power. A laugh.at pig is a dead pig, barbecued yippee style. I can dig that, but I relate most heavily to pig barbecued on the block. I would say that my favorite barbecued pig is what brothers and sisters call Willow Street pig, or Chef Aham's special pig roast. What kind of ceremony are we going to stage to celebrate our triumph over the pigs? It won't be another 4th of July. At least on the kindergarten level, it may be a bad idea to stage the inauguration of Pigasus and explain it to the little hip tots by saying, once upon a time, a class of exploiters and oppressors ruled our country and the people called them pigs. They called them pigs because I, along with many other people, feel personally outraged by the game that the pigs have been running down. This gives me a chance to put forward an alternative interpretation of the Democratic National Convention held in Chicago in August 1968. Most people are eager to say that the pigs hipped out, or that they finally showed their true colors. I disagree. I believe that what happened in Chicago is a direct result of conspiracies hatched by the Republican Party and those who supported Nixon for president, working hand in hand with the racist, right-wing John Birchers who control the Chicago Police Department just as they control the police departments in many important cities throughout the country. The Republicans could that they had to move in a decisive manner or risk the Democrats winning the election by a close margin. Nixon, having lost once on a cliffhanger, was not taking any more chances. So someone dreamed up the greedy idea of shocking the American people into fear and hysteria and at the same time both wrecking the Democratic National Convention and firmly establishing in the minds of the American people the image of the Democrats as being responsible for the violence going down in Babylon. The situation was made to order for a pig setup. And it worked. There is a danger to the healthy development of the American Revolution in the fact that often revolutionaries are manipulated by the ruling class to appear as a bigger threat than they really are. This is done by right-wing elements who need an atmosphere of 9. Hysteria in which to work, otherwise they would never be able to attract the people to their desperate, hopeless strategies. By unleashing ferocious violence in Chicago, the right wing was able to shock the nation, panic the people, and give rise to a kick the rascals out sentiment that could not be blocked by that stupid fucker Hubert Humphrey. Now the whole thing is being blamed on the revolutionary forces. Nixon is safely in office. On the night October 1, 1967, in the wee hours of that darkness, guns blat are, ed in the heart of Black Oakland, on 7th and Willow Streets. The quiet 01 the night was shattered by the minor thunder 01 the guns. Death stalking a circle around warring men, and the shadow of death was created by the black R.E. leaping from the barrel 01 a gun. A pig white lay dead, deep fried in the fat 01 his own bullshit. And another pig white lay there, similar to the dead one in every respect except that he did not die. This was a rare moment 01 death lore the oppressor and triumph lore the oppressed. This beautiful spark of glory on the streets in the dark in Babylon lights the way for Lil Bobby to find room in which to die a warrior's death, and light to show those who remain and fight on how to finish the job of offing the pigs. Prison, where is thy victory? Minister of Defense Huey P. Newton has asked. Black people do you out accept, and have firmly rejected, and are fighting against, racist oppression at home and imperialist aggression abroad. In prison, on the streets, in the courts, outside the country, the answer is one and the same, on the pigs. It is time for America's children to start killing and dying for themselves, and stop exporting the revolution and the deaths that we must die. Toward the end of December 1966, almost 3 years ago, I accompanied Beverly Axelrod to Stu Albert's pad in Berkeley. It was late afternoon. Jerry and Nancy, Stu, Joanne, Jack Weinberg, and perhaps others were present, but these I don't remember. I had been out of prison for barely a couple of weeks, and Beverly was introducing me to her friends. These were cats whose activities in the FSM and Vietnam Day Committee I had read about while in prison. I looked forward to the day when I'd be free and would have the chance to meet these cats and perhaps work with them. 10. This was our first meeting. We turned on and talked about the future. No one was quite sure of just how they would move. Yippee was as yet an uncoined word, and I had not yet encountered the Black Panther Party. We were in agreement, of course, on what basically had to be done, but it was clear that much had to be created before our dreams could be realized. At that time, the black movement and the white movement were not speaking to each other. Stokely Carmichael was the leader of SNCC, and was on his way up to the zenith of the authority of his rap. Now, as I write this, Stu Albert and his rib, Gumbo, are guests in my pad here in Alger. Jerry is on trial in Chicago along with the chairman of the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale, and along with Tom Hayden, Dave Dellinger, Abby Hoffman, Rennie Davis, Lee Weiner and John Froins. Thinking back to that evening in Stu's pad in Berkeley, I remember the huge poster of W.C. Fields on the ceiling, and the poster of Che on the wall. Che, with his far-seeing eyes, staring fiercely and fearlessly into the revolutionary future and at the death which he surprised with his heroic welcome. None of us knew, that night, what the future would be, except that we all knew that we would be trying. And we have tried. And we will continue to try. And we will have successes that will surprise us. In this book, Jerry has detailed, in a very readable fashion, the essence of the efforts that he has made, and in doing so, he tells us much of what he knows about America, things we all need to know. The other night I talked to Jerry on the telephone Alger to Babylon and he almost bubbled right through the receiver the way he bubbles through this book. The way he bubbles through life. In publishing this book a child of America goes on trial before America. In reading it, America will be surprised to learn that, in fact, America is on trial before the child, before all its children. And for a verdict, the children are screaming for America's death. Right on. Alger, Algeria. November 4, 1969. All power to the people. Eldridge Cleaver. 11. 1. Child of America. I am a child of America. If I'm ever sent to death row for my revolutionary crimes, I'll order as my last meal, a hamburger, French fries, and a Coke. I dig big cities. I love to read the sports pages and gossip columns, listen to the radio and watch color TV. I dig department stores, huge supermarkets, and airports. I feel secure when I see Howard Johnson's on the expressway. I groove on Hollywood movies, even bad ones. I speak only one language, English. I love rock and roll. I collected baseball players' cards when I was a kid and wanted to play second base for the Cincinnati Reds, my home team. I got a car when I was 16 after flunking my first driver's test and crying for a week waiting to take it a second time. I went to the kind of high school where you had to pass a test to get in. I graduated in the bottom half of the class. My classmates voted me the busiest senior in the school. I had short hair. I dug catcher in the rye. I didn't have pimples. I became an ace young reporter for the Cincinnati Post and Times-Star. Son, the managing editor said to me, someday you're going to be a hell of a reporter, maybe the greatest reporter the city's ever seen. I loved Adlai Stevenson. 12. My father drove a truck delivering bread and later became an organizer in the Bakery Drivers Union. He dug Jimmy Hoffa. He died of heart failure at 52. My mother had a college degree and played the piano. She died of cancer at the age of 51. I took care of my brother, Gil, from the time he was 13. I dodged the draft. I went to Oberlin College for a year, graduated from the University of Cincinnati, spent 1% years in Israel and started graduate school at Berkeley. I dropped out. I dropped out of the white race and the American nation. I dig being free. I like getting high. I don't own a suit or tie. I live for the revolution. I'm a yippie. I am an orphan of America. 13. 16. 2. Elvis Presley killed Ike Eisenhower. The new left sprang, a predestined pissed-off child, from Elvis gyrating pelvis. Tell ya something, brother found a new place to dwell down on the end of lonely street, its Heartbreak Hotel. On the surface the world of the 1950s was all Eisenhower calm. A cover story of I like Ike father figure contentment. Under the surface, silent people railed at the chains upon their souls. A latent drama of repression and discontent. America was trapped by her contradictions. Dad looked at his house and car and manicured lawn, and he was proud. All of his material possessions justified his life. He tried to teach his kids, he told us not to do anything that would lead us from the path of success. 17. Work, don't play, study, don't loaf, obey, don't ask questions, fit in, don't stand out, be sober, don't take drugs, make money, don't make waves. We were conditioned in self-denial. We were taught that fucking was bad because it was immoral. Also in those pre-pill days a knocked-up chick stood in the way of respectability and success. We were warned that masturbation caused insanity and pimples. And we were confused. We didn't dig why we needed to work toward owning bigger houses, bigger cars, bigger manicured lawns. We went crazy. We couldn't hold it back anymore. Elvis Presley ripped off Ike Eisenhower by turning our uptight young awakening bodies around. Hard animal rock energy beat/surged hot through us, the driving rhythm arousing repressed passions. Music to free the spirit. Music to bring us together. Buddy Holly, the Coasters, Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, the Everly Brothers, Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Ray Charles, Bill Haley and the Comets, Fabian, Bobby Darin, Frankie Avalon, they all gave us the life/beat and set us free. Elvis told us to let go. 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 18. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let flow. 0 equals R3 : L equals R3. 3. A one-iant culture, by producing a car and car radio for every middle-class home, gave Elvis a base for recruiting. While a car radio in the front seat rocked with "Tum Me Loose," young kids in the back seat were breaking loose. Many a night was spent on dark and lonely roads, bawling to hard rock beat. The back seat produced the sexual revolution, and the car radio was the medium for subversion. Desperate parents used permission to drive the car as a power play in the home. If you don't obey, you can't have the car Saturday night. It was a cruel weapon, attacking our gonads and our means of getting together. The backseat became the first battleground in the war between the generations. Rock and roll marked the beginning of the revolution. 19. 3. The middle of the beast. Che stood before us in the Ministry of Labor auditorium. He was shorter than we expected, about 5 feet 10 inches tall. He wore an olive green military uniform with a revolver at his hip. He embraced us with his intensity and joy. We were 84 American students visiting Cuba illegally in 1964. We had to travel 14,000 miles, via Czechoslovakia, to reach Cuba, 90 miles off the Florida coast. As Che rapped on for 4 hours, we fantasized taking up riddles, growing beards, going into the hills as guerrillas, joining Che to create revolutions throughout Latin America. None of us looked forward to returning home to the political bullshit in the United States. Then Che jolted us out of our dream of the Sierra Madre. He said to us, "You North Americans are very lucky. You live in the middle of the beast. You are fighting the most important fight of all, in the center of the battle. If I had my wish, I would go back with you to North America to fight there. I envy you." 20. 4. FSM, shut the motherfucker down. It began with a 14-word edict issued by a Berkeley campus dean outlawing political tables and leafleting for the purpose of organizing demonstrations off the campus. We were amazed. Surely it must be a problem of communication. But every dean we talked to said, "I can't do anything about it. I'm not responsible. But you'll have to obey the rules." And the president of the university, Clark Kerr? No one even knew what he looked like. Then we learned the inside story. The previous year we used the campus to organize massive civil rights demonstrations against the hotel and auto industries in San Francisco. The very same racists who controlled the business world controlled the university too. And they were trying to protect their businesses by attacking us at our base, the university. They were the regents. The regents were at their country clubs, and they would rather shit on a student than talk to him. We put up civil rights tables in the middle of the campus. We decided to deliberately break the new rules. A police car pulled onto Sproul Plaza. Cops were leading one arrested activist into the car when somebody shouted, "Sit down." Within seconds the car was surrounded by a few hundred people. Within minutes our numbers grew to 2,000. Inside the police car was Jack Weinberg, a prisoner of the pigs. But we surrounded the pigs, and they were our prisoners. We demanded his release in exchange for their release. The cops would have to drive the car over our bodies to take our brother to jail. 21. We climbed on top of the police car to rap about what was going down. For the next 10 hours into the night, 5,000 people packed into the Berkeley campus square for the greatest class we ever attended. As we surrounded the car, we became conscious that we were a new community with the power and love to confront the old institutions. Our strength was our willingness to die together, our unity. We created our own spontaneous government. People formed communes to make sandwiches for those surrounding the car. Committees notified the media and contacted students across the country, and we created a negotiating team in case the university was interested. 32 hours later, we heard the grim roar of approaching Oakland motorcycle cops behind us. I took a deep breath. Well, this is as good a place to die as any. But as we prepared to meet the heavy club of the man, the university suddenly dropped charges against our arrested brother and agreed to negotiate. The deans found themselves up against the wall for the first time in America. They didn't dig it. 22. 2 months later, we learned a heavy bureaucrat trick. The fucking deans were using negotiations as a dodge to wear us out. Talk, talk, talk while the rules against political activity stood strong. We got very pissed off. Full.pound. THJS chef. So one beautiful sunny noon, Joan Baez sang, Mario Savio orated and 1,000 people walked into the administration building to shut the motherfucker down. At 4 a.m. the governor, a liberal Democrat, ordered the Oakland cops to clear the building. 800 persons were arrested, the biggest single bust in American history. The sight of cops on campus threw all the fence-sitters, including the professors, right into the arms of the extremists. Students retaliated with a strike that crippled the university. We destroyed the university's moral authority. The only authority left on campus was the free speech movement. The regents and deans had no power. Students could do anything we wanted. Students became the biggest political force in the state with the university as our guerrilla stronghold. We held power on campus because we were the majority there. But off campus the politicians, courts and cops were hollering for our balls. The war against America in the schools and the streets by white middle-class kids thus commenced. 23. 5. Become a Lufutali non-student. The free speech movement invited young kids to come to Berkeley for the action. So thousands of refugees from New York and the Midwest flocked to live on the streets of Berkeley. It was an easy life. The weather was warm and the seasons hardly changed, so you didn't need to buy winter clothing. You could always get by selling dope. Or you could hawk the barb on the weekend and make enough money for the rest of the week. There were always guilty professors to panhandle. And some people started handicraft industries, sold jewelry, candles and other things they made right on the avenue. Nobody starved in the streets of Berkeley. A whole new culture burst forth just outside the biggest university in the history of the world. Telegraph Avenue was 5 blocks long, lined with bookstores, outdoor cafes, poster shops, and underground movie theaters. Dig the straight student who came out of a Los Angeles suburb to get an education at Berkeley. Heading for his dormitory or apartment after a hard day at school, he passed down Telegraph Avenue, like walking through the Revolution on the way home. He would pass a record shop and catch a couple of lines of Dylan. A middle-class suburban kid just like himself, except looking like a barefoot Jesus Christ, would walk up and ask him, "Any spare change?" Gradually the thought entered the consciousness of the straight student. Here I am burdened by assignments, responsibilities, guilts, no time my own. And here are these hippies on the streets, they can do whatever they want to. They can get high all day. They can stay in the sun all day, while I have to spend my time in a stuffy classroom, listening to boring professors and taking exams that are making me a nervous wreck. The university is a place for making it, a high-pressured rat race. Competition for grades, degrees, books, recommendations, getting into graduate school and getting a good job. The academic world is a hierarchy, and everybody's always kissing the ass of the guy on top of him. But all the students saw the living example of thousands of young kids who had given up on the straight world and who were free even though they hadn't reached retirement age. They were real students in the classical sense of education as self-growth. And since many of the hippies were ex-students, they had the zealous mission of reformed sinners. Students started hanging around non-student tables, and forgetting to go to their classes. As their hair lengthened, their interest in schoolwork shortened. As they smoked more and more dope, they found their exams and research papers more and more absurd. They started dropping out of school in droves. 25. 0. 2a. The wildest teacher at the University of California was Stu Albert. Stu sat behind the table of the Vietnam Day Committee and attracted massive crowds because he was the first revolutionary anyone ever saw with flowing blonde hair and devilish blue eyes. But soon as they looked, they got hooked by Stu into ferocious controversy about pot, Vietnam, God, the university, sex, and communism. It must have outraged the university professors. They had to force people to attend their classes through threats, rewards, and punishments. But here was Stu, holding everyone's attention just because they dug rapping freely. Stu was teaching under the sun, instead of in a stale classroom. But he had no right to teach. He hadn't gone through the credentials factory like everyone else. He was a dropout. The university became a fortress surrounded by our foreign culture, long-haired, dope-smoking, barefooted freaks who were using state-owned university property as a playground. It threatened the integrity of the university. It freaked out the politicians of the state. The politicians considered us traitors, and we were traitors using tax money to carry out our treason. The conservative forces in the state pressured the university to clean up the foreign scum. The university readily agreed, because it discovered the vermin corrupting from within as well as without. 26. The university began Operation Pacification, separate the people from the guerrillas. In Vietnam, the United States uproots the peasants from their homes and locks them into specially created strategic hamlets surrounded by barbed wire to keep out the Viet Cong. The university administration decided to turn the entire university into one big strategic hamlet. They created the category non-student. By putting a non in front of the people hanging around Telegraph Avenue, they excluded us from the human race. It was like Germany inventing the term non-Aryan. Anything bad that happened in Berkeley now could be blamed on the non-student. And of course, we the non-students, dug the name. It was just what we'd been trying to say all along. We've given up on degrees, careers, and all the external symbols of the American society. We are proud to be known by what we are not. To drive free spirits like Socrates stew from the campus, the university administration issued an order making it illegal for non-students to sit at tables on campus without students beside them. The university outlawed non-students leafleting on campus and said any organization with non-student members could not use university facilities. The California state legislature passed the Mulford Act. A non-student who does not leave the campus when ordered to by a university official can be arrested for trespassing. 27. To carry out all this pacification, the university mobilized a plainclothes cop with the full-time job of walking around the campus in search of non-students, spying on politically active students, looking for rule violations, compiling dossiers, and working closely with the Red Squad, FBI and CIA. Stu spotted him and yelled out, "Hi there, Dean Fuzz." The name stuck. The goal was to castrate students. If students became politically active, they were kicked out of school and turned into non-students. Mario Savio, the archetypal student leader, became a non-student. A student was defined as somebody with an enrollment card, not somebody interested in learning. It was totalitarian state doublethink. But you had to feel some sympathy for the president of the university, Clark Kerr. He was so proud of his statistics and blueprints. The millions he panhandled from the federal government and from big businessmen. The number of Nobel Prize winners at his university. The scores of buildings to be built. Weapons discovered. New departments. The football team. But wherever Kerr traveled in the country, nobody asked him about his Nobel Prize winners or expansion programs. What about those student demonstrators on campus? They asked over and over again. Poor Kerr. We stole his university right out from under his nose. 28. I was going to the Bears' lair for a hamburger when I noticed a sit-in. I can't resist a sit-in. Whenever I see people sitting down, I suddenly get very tired. Regardless of the issue Biafra, lower pay for cops, blue skies, higher taxes. If you're sitting in and disrupting, I'll be there too. After sitting down for an hour, I asked the guy next to me, "Hey, what's this sit-in all about anyway?" It was a protest against some non-students who had put up a table outside the Bears' lair and were handing out literature, an act absolutely forbidden by the new rules. The students thought it was unfair for these non-students to hand out literature. Being a non-student, I righteously agreed. I picked up a piece of literature from this non-student table. Join the Navy and see the world. Some non-students are less non than others, especially military recruiters. I sat through the entire sit-in without saying a word, getting ready any minute to leave for that hamburger. Finally the cops arrived and surrounded the 1,000 people sitting in. Berkeley Executive Vice Chancellor Earl F. Scheidt, having just returned from a 6-week refresher course in the Soviet Union, issued a statement blaming the sit-in on 6 non-students. The cops had arrest warrants for the six: Mario Savio, Stu Albert, Steve Hamilton, Mike Smith, Bill Miller, and myself. Karen Wald, another non-student sitting right in the middle of the group, was ignored. Furious, she shouted, "You fucking male supremacists, arrest me, too." 29. They led the six of us away and charged us with trespassing and public nuisance. But the sight of cops on campus again infuriated all the moderate students, and the next day 8,000 people swarmed onto the campus square to endorse non-student Mario Savio's call for a strike. I dug it. The university's attempt to cast us as guerrilla fighters and the stud LNTS as dupes built the non-student myth to gargantuan proportions. It insulted the students and increased their desire to drop out. When you become a non-student, sex is better and more plentiful, you smoke more grass, you're healthier and happier, and you grow 100 feet tall. Melvin Belly, who had just defended Jack Ruby, wanted to take our case for free. I wanted to meet Belly. We all went over to his San Francisco office. Belly told us he thought the Vietnam War was right. Belly was a good liberal though. He said that the freedoms we were fighting for in Vietnam were lost on the campus when we were arrested. He believed the university should allow all political activity by students and non-students alike. Belly wore cowboy boots and a new suit every day of the trial. His face was orange from the makeup he wore for the TV cameras. His charisma dominated the courtroom. At one point in the middle of a motion to the judge, he theatrically pulled out a handkerchief, and while the jury, the packed courtroom, the prosecutor, and the judge hung in suspense, he took 40 seconds to blow his nose. We listened in total silence. Honk. Honk. Belly finished and said, "Excuse me, Judge." 30. The cops testified that I did not play a leadership role in the sit-in. Dean Fuzz said, "I don't think Jerry Rubin talked all day, but he did smile a lot." Belly then put Dean Chait on the stand. Belly asked him, "You say that these people disrupted the normal processes of the university, Mr. Dean?" The good Dean replied, "Yes, they did." Belly, did Jerry Rubin disrupt the normal processes of the university when he smiled? Belly's summation to the jury turned our necks red. "I can defend capitalism better than any man here," he began. He appealed to the jury to affirm American democracy. "These are fine young men, and if you send them to jail, you only prove that they are right when they say that their government is evil." We accidentally let onto the jury a dude who recently escaped as a refugee from Hungary. He took copious notes throughout the trial and became foreman and executioner on the jury. After 10 hours of deliberation, the verdicts came down. We were all convicted of being public nuisances. Mario got 90 days. Stu got 60. And I got the least, 45 days. 31. 6. Troop trains coming through our town, tra-la, tra-la. Troop trains coming. Troop trains. Chew. Chew. I heard Professors Steve Smale and Mo Hirsch chugging through the Vietnam Day Committee House, out of breath. They pointed excitedly to a sentence in the back pages of the Berkeley Gazette: "City Council has approved Santa Fe's request to take troop trains through the city of Berkeley on their way to the Oakland Army Terminal." Trains hauling GIs to Vietnam passing right through the residential area of our town. It was too much. The tracks were only 5 blocks from the VDC house. 2 VDC Peace Commandos jumped into a car and headed north 200 miles on an espionage mission. As soon as they saw a train, they were to telephone us. Then the VDC would flip into action. We had a telephone tree. We'd call 10 people who would, in turn, call 10 people. Within an hour, 1,000 people could be mobilized by phone. 32. OCU Hoffman, who agreed to let me go so that I could become Rubin's personal bodyguard. Bob eliminated Sonny from his superacid hallucination, because there's nothing very mythic about taking advantage of a chick. Sensational battles and beatings make better prevail your manhood myth. Sonny had to skip town because Pearson busted her on a felony. I joined in with the chants and taunts against the police and provoked the police into hitting me with their clubs. They didn't know who I was, but they did know that I had called them names and struck them with one or more weapons. An undercover cop is some trip. To glorify his own fantasy, he glorifies the people he spies on and makes us 1,000 feet tall. Pearson turned us all into super freaks, capable of taking more dope, fucking more chicks, killing more pigs, blowing up more buildings and throwing more shit than all of the regular freaks in the world put together. If there is ever a Hollywood movie about the yippies, Bob Pearson should write the screenplay. Big Bob is a yippie. He takes his fantasies for reality. 185. The last couple of days I was home before going underground. I carefully avoided bathing. If these were children, where were their parents? Why weren't they at home, instead of in a far-off city with the avowed purpose of stirring up trouble? 32. How American Airlines, Richard Nixon, Spiro Agnew, Strom Thurmond, John Mitchell, Walter Cronkite, CBS, NBC, ABC, Uncle Ho, and a million spirits conspired to burn Chicago down. Dig Pavlov and his dog Spot. Ring the bell and then give Spot food. Soon Spot salivates when you ring the bell. Conditioning. Aided by thousands of mercenary psychologists from the universities, Madison Avenue got the American people in the 1950s to salivate whenever they heard the bell. Communism. The Negro people have been given a raw deal for centuries, but the communists are using the civil rights movement, so we got to stop them. The politician rings the bell. The people froth and quiver. So much for Negroes. Next problem. South Vietnam is no democracy like the United States, but the Viet Cong are communists, so the Vietnamese are better dead than red. The politician hits the bell, and the American people slobber all over their red, white and blue bow ties. 186. But then a wonderful thing happened. Children were born. Children were born who get no bad vibes when we hear the name Stalin. We get sexually aroused by the word revolution. We get high on yippee. And we puke at the sound of Nixon. The government is frantic to find the word to make the American people drool again. They even have a semanticist named Hayakawa carrying out big-scale field work at San Francisco State College. They're trying out a lot of words. The most popular one now is conspiracy. They arrested 7 Berkeley radicals for conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor trespassing during Stop the Draft Week. Conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor is a felony, dig the semantics. They busted teenagers in Toledo for conspiracy to smoke dope. They busted the cast of Lennox Raphael's Che in New York for conspiracy to commit consensual sodomy. 21 New York Black Panthers were arrested for conspiring to blow up department stores and the botanical gardens. And they arrested Black Panther Bobby Seale, Dave Dellinger, Tom Hayden, Rennie Davis, Abby Hoffman, Lee Weiner, John Frowens, and me for conspiring to cross state lines to eat suckling pig in Chicago. According to yippie semanticists, conspiracy comes from the Latin root meaning to breathe together. Our crime is that we breathe. The crime becomes a felony when we breathe together. The seriousness of the felony mounts as more people start breathing together at the same time in the same place. 188. We are the conspiracy. We're the biggest, baddest motherfucking conspiracy you ever saw. We got everybody on our side. Dig all the people who worked with us conspiring to plan the Chicago police riot. The first conspirators were the airlines. American, United and TWA flew all of us their youth fare. All you need to fly youth fare is long hair. All long hairs look alike. Posing as my 20-year-old piano student brother Gil, I traveled from New York to Chicago 1,000 times to further the conspiracy. Richard Nixon, Spiro Agnew, Strom Thurmond, and John Mitchell got so excited that they gave us $500 to send our first yippee statement across the world. But for real money, we went to the TV networks. We offered each network exclusive information about where scenes of police violence were going to occur. ABC refused to bid, but CBS and NBC fought like dogs. We gave Brinkley and Cronkite auditions repeating the line, "Chicago is a police state." Cronkite made it sound more convincing, so we accepted his bread. The network executives agreed their reporters would be physically beaten by Chicago cops in order to personalize the media's involvement with the story. And there was Roe, who conspired with Dave Dellinger via international telephone and telegraph, to arrange the Viet Cong seizure of the American embassy in Saigon to inspire our Chicago recruits with a will to win. We sent the Justice Department a long list of conspirators to help them with their indictments for Chicago. Top of the list was Dylan. We learned it all from him. The pump don't work 'cause the vandals took the handle. 189. What about Gene McCarthy? The Yippies had a secret meeting with Gene 1 week after he entered the New Hampshire primary. We told him he was going to raise naive hopes and cause a riot of outraged young straight people in Chicago. He dug it. Fuck, Danny the Red set France on fire 3 months before Chicago to shoot us up with adrenaline. And mythic Mark Rudd conquered Columbia to set the revolutionary dynamics in motion. If the FBI wants to bust those who really created Chicago, they have to indict Carol Chessman, Charles Van Doren, Marilyn Monroe, Oswald Augustus Owsley, Sherman Adams, Walter Jenkins, Bobby Baker, Tim Leary, Gary Powers, Antonin Artaud, Abe Fortas, Sputnik, Allen Ginsberg, Jimmy Pearsall, John Dillinger, Norman Mailer, the Marquis de Sade, Charlie Chaplin, Mary J. Zero Kopechne and Lassie. Any list of conspiracy indictments must include everybody possessed by the spirit of freedom. But out of trillions, they selected only us 8. And they forgot to indict those who conspired to create our conspiracy, Dickie Nixon and Dickie J. Daley. The conspiracy is a spirit dwelling in the land. It is bigger than all of us together. People in J3 Erkley were walking down Telegraph Avenue one fine day, and without warning they were touched by the revolution. The conspiracy spirit moved to the Pentagon, where people became transformed by the spirit of Berkeley. And then to New York. Chicago. France. The Yippie Panther Pact began spiritually in 1964 and 1965 when Berkeley students were disrupting their university and stopping troop trains, and Eldridge Cleaver was in Folsom Prison. Eldridge writes in Soul on Ice how he felt, "I'd like to leap the whole last mile and grow a beard and don whatever threads the local nationalism might require and comrade with Che Guevara, and share his fate, blazing a new Pathfinder's trail through the stymied upbeat brain of the new left. I'd just love to be in Berkeley right now, to roll in that mud, frolic in that sty of funky revolution." Eldridge Cleaver had been sentenced to jail at birth by white America. His first prison sentence was for possession of what he calls a bag full of love, but his crime was his black skin. Now he sat in jail and read about the children of his white jailers spitting in the face of their arrogant fathers. The oppressor's children joining the oppressed. Don Lewis. 5 years later, Eldridge Cleaver became candidate of the Peace and Freedom Party for President of the United States. Eldridge's vision was coming true, young whites rejecting white society. White was a state of mind. Hippies were seeking a new identity. Young whites were blowing middle-class America out of their minds and bodies with drugs, sex, music, freedom, living on the streets. They were filling the jails. They were 195. Not in the revolution merely to support blacks, but were dropouts of white society fighting for their own freedom. Eldridge wanted an alliance between bad blacks and bad whites. Criminals of all colors unite. Brotherhood through common struggle and oppression. Equality under the pigs. Black-white unity becomes a real thing only when whites are treated like blacks. Eldridge wanted a coalition between the Panthers and the psychedelic street activists. He had one requirement for his vice presidential candidate: he had to be out on bail. I had just been attacked in my apartment by 3 New York narcs. So Eldridge called me, and I dug it. 196. But what would the Peace and Freedom Party say? They'd have a heart attack. It's made up of whites who do not feel oppressed, who are waiting for the working class to rise up, whose props are suits and ties, leaflets and position papers. These whites can accept running a pot-smoking, gun-toting, ex-con nigger for president. But a long-hair white freak for vice president? Heaven forbid. I went to the New York convention of the Peace and Freedom Party and threw my hat in the ring. I suggested that we move the Peace and Freedom Party out of their bureaucratic offices and into the streets. A party of white dropouts. I got creamed. The party nominated a college professor with an attaché case. Eldridge could not find one person in the California Peace and Freedom Party to support an alliance with the Yippies. People would just laugh. Eldridge, you're not serious. But Eldridge would not let the Peace and Freedom Party bureaucracy put a lock on his mind any more than Theppy. At the founding conference of the Peace and Freedom Convention in Ann Arbor, Eldridge broke the boredom by 197. Putting on a Yippie button and nominating a Yippie for vice president. Stu described the reaction in the barb. I saw women crying and grown men driven to distraction. The mood on the convention floor was crazed and could best be summarized by the look on the face of one up-and-coming young college professor who, when he careened head-on into Eldridge's chest eye level with a Yippie button, stuttered and said, "My God, it's true. How could you?" Eldridge later told the barb what happened, "You would have thought I'd thrown a bomb." Their class prejudices came out when they talked about having to explain people like the up-against-the-wall motherfuckers, yippies, and hippies to the rest of the white community. They talked about them as those scum. The cultural revolution in the white community is to the left of the political left in the white community. The Peace and Freedom Party voted to nominate no national vice presidential candidate, rather than accept a yippie who was at that moment preparing to destroy the Democratic Convention in Chicago. Eldridge and the Yippies got together next, high in the Berkeley Hills, to smoke a lot of grass and write the Panther Yippie pipe dream. Opening salvos from a black/white gun by madmen grappling with the cause of their madness in search of a cure. We have been driven out of the political arena into the wilderness of our own dumb minds. We will not dissent from the American government. We will overthrow it. 198. Eldridge Cleaver, Stu Albert, and Jerry Rubin, Joint Introduction. The symbol of the Yippie Panther Pact is a hashpipe crossed by a gun. Eldridge, Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party, wrote, "Into the streets. Into the alleys. Back of town. Onto the rooftops. Behind whatever shelter remains for a black person here in Babylon. Brother Malcolm said that it's gonna be the ballot or the bullet. Let us join together with all those souls in Babylon who are straining for the birth of a new day. A revolutionary generation is on the scene. There are men and women, human beings, in Babylon today. Disenchanted, alienated white youth, the hippies, the yippies, and all the unnamed dropouts from the white man's burden, are our allies in this cause." Stu and I, for the Youth International Party, wrote, "Vote with your feet on election day. Can you dig it? In every city boycotts, strikes, sit-ins, pickets, pray-ins, feel-ins, piss-ins at the polling places. Nobody goes to work. Nobody goes to school. Nobody votes. Everybody becomes a life actor of the street. Force the National Guard to protect every polling place in the country. Join the rifle club of your choice. Freak out the pigs with exhibitions of snake dancing and karate at the nearest pig pen. Release a Black Panther in the Justice Department. Fly an American flag out of every house so voters can't find the polling places. Take a burning draft card to Spiro Agnew." Eldridge was the craziest presidential candidate America's ever seen. On the steps of Sproul Hall, he led 5,000 Berkeley students in a chorus. "Fuck you Ronald Reagan. Fuck you Ronald Reagan." 199. At the Panther Yippie Erection Day rally, Eldridge smoked a joint, poured out his soul to 3,000 people and then withdrew his name from the presidential campaign in favor of Pigasus. As the heat of the parole board got heavier and heavier on his head, he got more and more courageous. He was like a man who had risen from the depths of hell and despair to know what a joy it was to be alive and free. He tempted the pigs until the day before prison day and then split, telling us, "See you soon, by fair means or foul." No nigger on parole ever got away with the shit that I got away with. I ran for president. I wrote a book. I insulted every politician in America. I've traveled around the country and called them all pigs. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to come back. I'm happy. I had a lot of fun. I loved it. And we got to raise the shit to a higher level. America has to jail Eldridge Cleaver because freedom is contagious and Eldridge is a free man. America declared war on humanity when she exiled Eldridge. If America is not free for Eldridge Cleaver, America has no right to exist. The pigs fired the first shot. But we, the white and black niggers, will fire the last. 235, HUAC digs Chase painted tits but bars Santa Claus. One morning, early September, 1968, Abby called me from New York. "Just got a HUAC subpoena," said Abby. I immediately felt that old sexual anxiety again. Subpoenas envy. You did? I want one, too. I phoned HUAC's West Coast confidant, a Hearst newsman named Ed Montgomery. "Jerry, baby," he said. "Just talk to HUAC. They've got a subpoena for you. They've been looking for you in New York." "New York?" I said, deliriously happy. "You guys are sure doing a shitty job of trying to save this country. I've been in Berkeley all week. I wanted to turn the receiving of the subpoena into a religious ceremony. HUAC must have liked the idea too, because they agreed to deliver the subpoena in Sproul Plaza at noon, the busiest time on campus. The dream of every red-blooded American boy and girl should be to grow up and become a subversive and get subpoenaed before HUAC, I told a crowd of students, reporters, TV cameramen, cops, and FBI agents, as Tom Hayden and I sacrificed our subpoenas to the God of Fire. I wore 10 Eldridge Cleaver for President buttons. Last time I was subpoenaed before HUAC I made $400 and lived on it for 2 months, organizing demonstrations on the Berkeley campus. I want to thank HUAC. We're going to use the money we make this time to continue to finance the revolution." The right-wing Berkeley Gazette said, Rubin, in a mood of jubilation, seemed more to be accepting an invitation to a tea party than a summons to testify. 201. After the burning I hung around day and night on Telegraph Avenue pushing a "What should Jerry wear?" contest. The Revolutionary War costume was really an attempt at rational communication with HUAC. I wanted this uniform to go beyond the heads of HUAC and straight to the kids. Maybe when they call me to testify, I'll rip off all my clothes and shout, "I have nothing to hide." Maybe I should come as a baseball player with yippies written on the back of my uniform. I'll bring a bat and ball and say to HUAC, "Let's go outside and settle this the good old American way." Eldridge suggested that I come dressed as a Black Panther and he come with me dressed as a hippie, but the parole board wouldn't let him travel. Maybe come as a pirate? A clown? An Indian? Then a fantastic idea hit me, why not a little bit of everything? Why not a gestalt? I'll come as a one-man international revolution, a walking conspiracy. My nonverbal message: American youth must begin guerrilla war. We must all become stoned guerrillas. When guerrilla war comes to a country, it comes through the style of that culture. When guerrilla war comes to America, it will come in psychedelic colors. We are hippie guerrillas. 202. I arrived wearing a Black Panther beret with panther and yippie buttons, Egyptian earrings, a Mexican bandolier with live 303 British infield bullets around my chest, black silk Viet Cong pajamas, jangling ankle bracelets, beads, and a headband. I had cowbells and jingle bells around my neck, wrists, and ankles so that every time I moved I sounded like an orchestra. My face, naked hairy chest and bare feet were painted with psychedelic designs and peace symbols. Over my shoulder I carried a toy M16 custom-made rifle, the kind the Viet Cong use after stealing them from the Americans. "Let me see that gun." The guard at the door was a big fucking pig. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. I shot him with my toy gun. Then he said, "Let me see those bullets." "Hey, these are real bullets." "But," I said, "I got no gun to shoot them in." "Well, you can't enter with these bullets." Within seconds 2 pigs grabbed me by both arms and were dragging me down 3 flights of stairs and out of the house office building. They wouldn't let me back in until I disarmed myself of the bullets. But they allowed me to keep my rifle. 203. Guess what pissed HUAC off the most? The Viet Cong black pajamas. No. The gun? No. The jangly bells? No. My painted tits. Congressman Richie Ichord, the new chairman of HUAC, couldn't take his eyes off my painted tits. He really had a thing for my painted tits. He was more uptight about my painted tits than he was about political ideology. Here we were, terrorists, anarchists and freaks. We had just executed the crime of the century in Chicago. And these HUAC assholes were talking about meetings of the Communist Party decades ago. They kept mentioning names of people who were dead. I yelled out, "The Communist Party opposed the Chicago demonstration, fools." The gavel came pounding down. They didn't want their theater confused with facts. Abby raised his hand. "May I be allowed to go to the bathroom?" We could feel the earth vibrate with the giggling of the kids who read that in their hometown newspapers. The profound question of the times. One morning I put on my blue-red-yellow Viet Cong flag as a cape. Abby wore a shirt made out of the American flag. We split for the hearings at the house office building. Cops massed about a block ahead of us. We saw them gripping their clubs and eyeing us the way cops do when they're about to move. They came toward us. Then it flashed, "I am about to be arrested for treason, for wearing the flag of the enemy in Washington, D.C. 204. But who did the cops grab and toss into the paddy wagon? Abby with his American flag. I was left standing all alone on the street with my VC flag. "You communists!" I screamed. "Traitors! This is the Viet Cong flag. What's happening to this country?" The big day, my undercover cop was the scheduled witness. He was still hallucinating from that super pill we gave him. He said so many groovy things. He said the Yippies had an Otisite trade agreement with the Chicago biker gang, the Headhunters. The Yippies gave the Headhunters dope and sex. In return, we got dynamite and bike power. He said that I quoted Lenin whenever I wanted to convince anyone of anything, that I suggested that we isolate the cops and kill them, and that I advocated the assassination of Daley and McCarthy. Pearson did not say whether Rubin intended this as a direct threat for immediate action or whether it was a personal boast, reported the Washington Evening Star. That night I returned to my hotel to find my room full of tear gas. A calling card and death threat from the American Nazi Party was tacked on my door. My own HUAC testimony was all prepared. When they asked me to name members of the Yippies, I was going to read them the names in the Chicago and Washington telephone books. I planned to hand each HUAC congressman $10 and cordially thank him for his hard work on behalf of the Yippies. I was going to give Ichord the same pill we gave Pearson. 206. And I planned to conclude, there is an international commie conspiracy and it's 4/5 of the world and it's all against you, you dumb motherfuckers. You should be paranoid. I just took LSD, mescaline, STP, THC, and marijuana and I'm flying high. I'm fucking stoned. And if you've never been stoned, you'll never understand what I'm telling you. You old motherfuckers are pissed off because we're stealing your children. There's even a communist conspiracy in your own sperm. Just as I was getting ready to testify, Ichord cancelled the hearings for 2 months. *****. In 2 months I had my same old political problem. What to wear to Congress? It was Christmas. Santa Claus. Santa is a red. He represents the red peril. And he's got a beard, therefore he's a hippie. I'd be a red-bearded Santa Claus because I got a red beard. And what does Santa smoke in that pipe? Grass. Santa gives everything away free. He's a commie. Santa is a stoned commie. Santa laughs a lot. At the hearing I'd get up and laugh, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, the Viet Cong are gonna win, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, ho, ho, ho. I arrived at the hearing room in a rented Santa suit, and the pig stopped me. You can't come into the hearings unless you take off that silly suit. 207. I replied, this is how I dress every day. You shouldn't be prejudiced against me because of the way I dress. HUAC let me in with painted tits and gun, but they wouldn't let me in as Santa Claus. I sat right down outside the hearing room. A couple of HUAC secretaries brought me cupcakes and told me that they dug the yippies. They didn't like working for HUAC. We have infiltrators everywhere. The next day's headlines blared. HUAC bars Santa Claus. I got high seeing that. I had communicated with every 4-, 5-, 6 and 7-year-old kid in the country. I proved to them that the US Congress was against Santa Claus. It told the New York Daily News that if he called me for future hearings he would first recommend a competent psychiatric examination. A month later HUAC proposed a new law outlawing insults to Congress through cultural means. What are cultural means? Dig it? Freaky clothes. That's my law. I wrote that law. I'm a legislator. Once upon a time only congressmen could get laws through Congress. Now the average citizen can write laws. That should be everybody's goal. Write your own law. Do something so crazy that they got to pass new laws to outlaw it. They don't have enough laws now to stop what's going down. Make them outlaw you. Make yourself illegal. 208. 36. Burn down the schools. A sunny day on the Berkeley campus. Students are carrying 10 pounds of books from one class to the next. We non-student fuck UPS say, excuse me, student. Did you know the sun is shining? They look at us like we're crazy. We invade libraries yelling, the sun is shining. The sun is shining. We go into a psychology class on thinking, a huge lecture hall with 300 students. The professor is up front, diagramming behavior on the blackboard. Everybody writes down in their notebook every word he spews. His first words are, good morning, class. The guy next to me copies down, good morning, class. Somebody raises his hand and asks, do we have to know that for the exam? 209. The classroom is an authoritarian environment. Teach. Er up front and rows of students one after another. Do not lose your temper, fuck, kiss, hug, get emotional or take off your clothes. The class struggle begins in class. We roll a few joints and start smoking in the middle of the classroom. The smell is overpowering, but no one seems to notice it. The Viet Cong could attack with mortar shells, and everybody would still be taking notes. It's an assembly line. The professor talks, students copy. Everyone is 99% asleep. Marvin Garson takes off his shirt and begins tongue kissing with his chick Charlie. I rip off my shirt and start soul kissing with Nancy. There we are in the middle of the class, shirts off, kissing, feeling each other up and smoking pot. Everyone gets itchy and nervous because of us. No one can take notes anymore. The professor stutters. Pen stop. People squirm. Everyone's looking at us, no one at the professor. But the students are too repressed and shy to say anything. Finally a girl in the middle of the room can't stand it anymore. Could these people please stop making a disturbance? She pants. Nancy leaps to her feet, This is a class on thinking. We're thinking. You can't separate thinking from kissing, feeling, touching. We're the laboratory part of the class. Anybody who wants to come, join us. Anybody who wants to listen to the lecture part of the class, move to the other part of the room. The professor then reveals his soul. In my class, he says with authority, I do the teaching. 210. Scratch a professor and find a pig. 200. Psychological terrorists could destroy any major university without firing a shot. Schools, high schools and colleges are the biggest obstacle to education in America today. Schools are a continuation of toilet training. Taking an exam is like taking a shit. You hold it in for weeks, memorizing, just waiting for the right time. Then the time comes, and you sit on the toilet. 211. Al. UML. It feels so good. You shit it right back on schedule for the grade. When exams are over, you got a load off your mind. You got rid of all of the shit you clogged your poor brain with. You can finally relax. The paper you write your exam on is toilet paper. Babies are Zen masters, curious about everything. Adults are serious and bored. What happened? Brain surgery by the schools. I lost my interest in books in literature class. I lost my interest in foreign languages in language class. I lost my interest in biology class. Dig the environment of a university. The buildings look like factories, airports, army barracks, IBM cards in the air, hospitals, jails. They are designed to wipe out all individuality, dull one's senses, make you feel small. 212. Everyone should bring Dye-Glow paint to campus and psychedelicize the buildings as the first act of liberation. Critical or abstract thinking is a trap in school. Criticize, criticize, criticize. Look at both sides of the argument, take no action, take no stands, commit yourself to nothing, because you're always looking for more arguments, more information, always examining, criticizing. Abstract thinking turns the mind into a prison. Abstract thinking is the way professors avoid facing their own social impotence. Our generation is in rebellion against abstract intellectualism and critical thinking. We admire the Viet Cong guerrilla, the Black Panther, the stoned hippie, not the abstract intellectual vegetable. Professors are put-ons, writing and talking in fancy, scientific, big motherfucking words, so the people on the street won't dig that they're not saying shit. They're so thankful for their intellectual freedom in America that they're not going to waste it fighting on issues like poverty, war, drugs, and revolution. They insist upon the freedom to be irrelevant. We judge our teachers as men first and teachers second. How can you teach us about World War I if you weren't in the streets of Chicago? The goal of the revolution is to eliminate all intellectuals, create a society in which there is no distinction between intellectual and physical work, a society without intellectuals. Our task is to destroy the university and make the entire nation a school with on-the-job living. School addicts people to the heroin of middle-class life, busy work for grades stored in your records for the future. We become replaceable parts for corporate America. 213. School offers us cheap victories, grades, degrees in exchange for our souls. We're actually supposed to be happy when we get a better grade than somebody else. We're taught to compete and to get our happiness from the unhappiness of others. For us, education is the creation of a free society. Anyone who wants to teach should be allowed to teach. Anybody who wants to learn should be allowed to learn. There is no difference between teachers and students, because we teach and learn from each other. The professors and the students are the dropouts, people who have dropped out of life. The dropouts from school are people who have dropped into living. Our generation is making history in the streets, so why waste our lives in plastic classrooms? High school students are the largest oppressed minority in America. We know what freedom is when we hear the bell dismissing school. School's out, I'm free at last. Teachers know that unless they control our toilet training, we'd never stay in class. You gotta raise your hand to get permission to go take a shit. The bathrooms are the only liberated areas in school. Drop out? Why stay in school? To get a degree? Print your own. Can you smoke a diploma? We are going to invade the schools and free our brothers who are prisoners. We will burn the buildings and the books. We will throw pies in the faces of our professors. 214. We will give brooms and pails to the administrators so they can be useful and sweep the place up. Fuck bureaucrats, especially the nice deans of men who put one hand around our shoulders while the other hand gropes for our pants. We'll take all the records, grades, administrative shit, and flush it down the toilet. The same people who control the universities own the major capitalist corporations, carry out the wars, fuck over black people, run the police forces and eat money and flesh for breakfast. They are absentee dictators who make rules but don't live under them. Universities are feudal autocracies. Professors are house niggers and students are field niggers. Demonstrations on campuses aren't demonstrations, they're jailbreaks. Slave revolts. The war on the campuses is similar to the war in Vietnam, a guerrilla people's war. By closing down 100 universities in one day, we, the peasants, can level the most powerful blow possible against the pigs who run American society. We'll force the President of the United States to come on his hands and knees to the conference table. We're using the campus as a launching pad to foment revolution everywhere. Ronnie Reagan, baby, you're right. 215. 37, welcome home, Jerry. Dear Jerry, I fully agree with Mr. Brocomp in his decision inasmuch as I personally have for some time felt very deeply that your program of destruction for the sake of destruction is sheer nihilism whose open and avowed advocacy before a high school student body, as you requested, would be a rank contradiction of terms regardless of where or when it occurred. The writer of this shit was my high school teacher and advisor to the Chatterbox when I was sports editor and co-editor. I wanted to come back to speak at MyoID High School. Fuck, I considered myself one of the high school's finest graduates. I was the only member of my graduation class specifically not invited to the 10th year reunion of my class. The motto of the school was, "Rise to the highest." And I got myself a federal indictment. How much higher can you go? But the new warden of the school, Ray Brocomp, said I couldn't speak because it would defeat the school tax levy coming up for election next month. I called Brocomp from New York and told him he better bring the National Guard to stop me. 12 years since I had been back in Cincinnati, had the youth revolution reached the bowels of America? The banning of my speech was a good sign, the principal was uptight about something. Maybe he feared the students would really burn the school down? The school looked exactly as it had when I left it. High on a hill, with a green dome. The place where the rich groom their kids into the social elite. A giant banner hung from a second-floor classroom. Welcome home, Jerry. 216. Students poured out of the building. They asked me for my autograph. Plainclothes cops surrounded the school, FBI agents were on the roof with walkie-talkies. It was the Pentagon all over again. The warden of the prison came out flashing his best toothpaste commercial smile and asked me to be reasonable and not to create an incident. The decision that you cannot speak on school grounds is out of my hands, he said. It has been taken up by the Board of Education. The school had sure changed. It had all the signs of the revolution sweeping America from an underground paper to a full-time cop patrolling the halls. A 13-year-old led the fight against the principal's ban on my speech. The president of the student council was a long-hair, Andy Schwartz, who refused to carry the American flag during school assemblies. He wore a sign on his shirt saying, "Rubin forbidden fruit." 217. And even the principal had a picture of a pothead hanging on his wall, George Washington. I left the campus very slowly, walking 3 steps at a time, forcing the principal to keep shoving me gently from behind. "Please leave, Jerry. A small army of FBI and plainclothes cops were poised to attack and arrest me for corrupting the morals of youth. I slowly walked off campus leading 1,000 students, TV cameras, reporters, cops, and CIA agents to a nearby home where everybody got high, rapped and conspired to save our bodies from the fucked up school system. I arrived in Cincinnati on the same day a Teens for Decency rally was taking place. We held an indecency rally on the grass in Eden Park. The decency rally opened with 10,000 people reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and singing the Star-Spangled Banner. Marching bands offered music. Off-duty cops provided the color guard. Bare-chinned politicians, judges, and businessmen crowded the stage, arms held high, reciting prayers to God and country. Kids arrived in buses paid for by their parents. Across town 3,000 freaks contorted their bodies to the 218 orgiastic passion of live rock music while passing joints and sandwiches. The only adults around were the pigs. There were no buses paid for by parents, instead kids said, "I'm gonna get killed when I get home." Why you bear such a burden because of the actions of the indecent few, TV doll baby Dick Clark told the decency rally, unaware that at that precise moment some indecent yippies in short hair were passing through the decency crowd collecting spare change in red, white and blue containers. A deathly pall fell over the decency rally when a 19-year-old rally organizer, Bill Blue, took the mic and confessed his mortal sin. He forged a professor's name on a college form. Shame. But Bill asked for forgiveness and the crowd waved their American flags to symbolize the acceptance of his apology. Ecstatic cheers and foot-stomping shook the indecency rally as we made Bill Blue honorary chairman of the indecency rally for his great accomplishment forging a professor's signature. We even forgave him for apologizing. 219. The indecency rally was the weirdest mix you could find anywhere in America. Kids from the richest suburbs in town. Kids from the poorest white and black ghettos. Kids from homes of workers. Businessmen's kids. Kids from Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish homes. The decency rally ended with group chants. Down with obscenity. Up with God. Stamped out fuck. That night a TV announcer said, there were more people at the decency rally, but they seemed to be enjoying themselves more at the indecency rally. The station bleeped out my voice every time I uttered what the announcer called an obscene four-letter word, creating a nice audience participation game. Motherfucker has 12 letters. PNCK has 5. Shit has lower letters. So has luck. It could be shit or tuck, Helen. My homeward odyssey next brought me to a house full of relatives, aunts and uncles, their kids and friends. Uncle Sid greeted me at the door. He had his hair combed in bangs, wore a headband, a Mexican hippie vest and cowboy boots, and carried a small American flag in one hand and guitar in the other. "You came too soon," he said. "I was going to be sitting in a lotus position meditating." Then he looked at me very disappointed. "Jerry," he said. "Where's your Viet Cong flag? The family deserves the whole costume." "Uncle Sid," I laughed, "you were the first yippee." 220. I never realized to what extent we freaks dominate the consciousness of middle-class America. They turn on the TV news and all they see are riots, student demonstrations and revolution. Sid's son, Billy, is a long hair who just ended a hunger strike at Ohio State over ROTC on campus. My landlord relatives have all been hit with paralyzing rent strikes. "What's it all coming to, Jerry, what's it all coming to?" they moaned over and over again. I dug it. I visited the newspaper where I worked for 5 years as sports writer and youth page editor. Scripps Howard's brightest young journalist transformed into a dope-smoking, shaggy-haired, unbathed, riot-inciting, commie freak. The reporters were sitting at their desks just like I left them 13 years ago. They arrived at work at the same time. They got a Coke from the same Coke machine at the same time. They took a shit at the same time. They took the same bus to the same house. I used to say to them, This paper ought to be a family. We should share all the bread and make all the decisions together. Jerry, they trembled. That's communism. So I became a commie while working toward the Cincinnati Post and Times-Star. But 13 years later, there was a big difference. All the young reporters were getting no satisfaction. They wanted to drop out. They crowded around me, hoping that I, an outlaw, had some solutions. They were at the bottom of the paper and had no desire to go to the top. Soon I expect them to disrupt the very paper they work for with strikes, sit-ins, sabotage. 221. The editor refused to see me. He said. But most of my oid friends, the reporters, were warm and friendly. Great people. It wasn't their fault everything was so fucked up. It was the institution's fault. We have to overthrow the institutions and liberate the people. I came back to Cincinnati to freak out the city. I told the press that the Youth International Party, the SDS, and the Black Panthers were moving their national offices to Cincy, that Eldridge Cleaver was hiding out there, that I was moving back to the city to run for mayor and to subvert the high schools with dope, sex, and dynamite. The papers were full of far-out letters asking why I wasn't arrested for, as one letter put it, spewing forth a steady stream of lugubrious, seditious, and salacious junk at young people. The city manager gave the city's official reply. An administrative judgment was made that to arrest Mr. Rubin for a misdemeanor with a slight penalty would probably give him the confrontation he sought to appeal to the sympathy of the youth. 222. Right on. I drove through my oid neighborhood. Once white, middle class and Jewish. Now a black community. The whites have fled deeper and deeper into fancy suburbs. But look. The children of the fleeing middle class are hippies and are moving back into the old beautiful homes their parents deserted. We are standing America's myths on their heads. Remember Horatio Alger? We play his movie backwards, we begin at the top and work our way down to the bottom. Cincinnati. I was so glad to be home. So many freaks on the street. Blacks and long hairs giving each other the clenched fist. Schools and institutions falling apart. The poor cop on the beat, businessman, churchgoer, they have lost their kids and their country. Only a revolutionary can feel at home in America today. 223. 38. People's Park will rise again. The Central Intelligence Agency began to study maps, police reports, wiretap discussions, and newspaper files on the Berkeley problem in 1966. It was considered as important to roll back the liberated area of freaks in Berkeley as it was to secure South Vietnam from the Viet Cong. Roll back Berkeley. In an airport hideaway in San Francisco on September 11, 1966, a secret meeting was held to plan a new long-range operation to pacify Berkeley. Present were representatives of the CIA, the FBI, University of California officials, the state's top businessmen, officials from the Defense Department, 5 California police chiefs and Berkeley businessmen. The plan? Simple. Take away the sea from the fish. The outlaw element thrived in all the low-cost housing that surrounded the university, the old, rambling Berkeley homes. The University of California, which played the major role in the CIA's insidious conspiracy, planned to buy all the low-cost housing, rip it down and build in its place dormitory buildings and IBM cardboard apartment houses too high-priced and aesthetically revolting for the non-students. We'd have no place to live and would have to leave Berkeley. The university began by buying the square block of land right behind Telegraph Avenue and 3 blocks from campus. They tore down all the old buildings to build dorms, completely unnecessary because 30% of the current dorms were uninhabited. The non-students were pissed off when the bulldozers arrived. We knew what the goal was, hippie removal. We went on our way, muttering. 224. Then the wonderful contradictions of capitalism lucked up the CIA's scheme. War came to the university with strikes, tear gassing and armed occupation of the campus by the National Guard. The state legislature freaked out. Uptight at university officials for not killing the rioters, they slashed state aid to the university. Gone was the money needed to build the dorms. The land languished as a big mud puddle, a parking lot in the day, a mosquito breeding swamp at night. Then one day a freak looked at the dismal bog, a vision flashed into his head. He ran to see his friends. They mimeographed leaflets. Within an hour 300 people were at the swamp. Bulldozers arrived to flatten the land. Rocks were shoveled up, green sod laid. After one day's work, a small section of the swamp had been transformed into a park. A park. A park by the people. The word went around Berkeley, "Come and see the new park." A notice was printed in the Barb. Money was $226. 0 CDIDLA. Collected on the streets. The next day 600 people were shoveling up rocks and laying sod. While Ronnie Reagan was reading movie magazines at home, and while the entire university administration was drunk, sucking each other off in the back rooms of the university, people came to create People's Park. Like a Chinese commune, thousands scraped cement from old bricks which others then used to create winding mosaic paths. One group built a barbecue. Another created a playground. Some people made music on cans and drums, guitars, flutes, harps, recorders, voices and bodies. Others made films. Free food every day. Rock bands played. It was a theater for the free play of creativity, energy, and community. All of the art and life force of the underground culture swelling in pure love. Within 5 minutes after you'd go to the park, you'd be stoned. Free food. Free work. Free sex. Free smiles. Free Sunday, free moon. Free love. Free theater. Free store. Free music. Free dope. Free living. Free park. Everyday middle-class people from the Berkeley Hills left their children to play with us. People came to the park to plant their own trees. 227. Hippies, students, yippies, fraternity boys, sorority girls, panthers, middle-class people, everybody grooved in their own park. Hey, can I plant a corn patch? It's up to you. You decide. Hey, can I put some swings in? Oh, decide. There was no master plan. Nobody gave orders. Some people wanted to turn the huge pit in the middle of the park into a swimming pool, others wanted to have a fish pond. Everybody working on the park got together in a town meeting and debated it for a few hours, and voted to have the fish pond. The university deans woke up and saw what was happening. People were creating a park near the university. Motherfuck. That would attract all kinds of filth and vermin. Ronnie was telephoned, and he zipped up his pants and rushed to a secret meeting. 2 CIA agents were flown in from Washington. What to do to stop these long-haired beasts from creating a base in the heart of the area the university was trying to destroy? The students had expropriated land valued at $1,300,000. One morning at 3 a.m., Berkeley police arrived and shoved 50 people out of the park, making way for workmen who began to build a fence. By dawn, a barbed wire fence, lined with pigs, surrounded People's Park. A noon rally at the campus resulted in thousands of people roaring down Telegraph Avenue to tear that fucking fence down. 228. Curfew. Hydrants were opened up. Rocks thrown at pigs. Pigs released tear gas. People climbed on rooftops to throw rocks, and police pulled out shotguns. The critical escalation in the war between the cultures. For the first time, police opened fire on white American dissidents, shooting with birdshot. At the end of the day, James Rector was dying in a hospital, another man was blinded, and at least 100 people were wounded. The National Guard turned Berkeley into an occupied city. Vietnam helicopters stalked the city on reconnaissance missions looking for Viet Cong to direct pig cars to club, attack and arrest. Helicopters bombed the campus with tear gas. Public gatherings were outlawed. People were tortured in jail. People's Park became the base camp for the occupational forces in the war against the natives. Tents replaced our playground. Tanks and troop carriers ripped the trees and shrubs and flower beds. Crude army boots destroyed the green grass. Beer cans and cigarette butts floated on the pond. And Old Glory proudly flew above the carnage. 229. 39. It's against the law to pee in the streets. The revolution satisfies deep human needs denied by American society. That's why it's so dangerous. The biggest social problem in the country today is loneliness. What are you doing tonight? One don't know, Marty, what are you doing tonight? Loneliness is not an individual problem, it's the collective problem of millions of Americans, growing out of the alienating environment we live in. We work in one part of town with people who are not our friends, and we sleep in another part of town and don't know our neighbors. We waste much of our life dying in mobile concentration camps called freeways or commuter trains. Where in the city can we go to make friends? Where can we leap out of our individual prisons and enjoy each other? The city is full of walls, locked doors, signs saying, "Don't." If someone you don't know says hello, you get uptight. What's he want? It's taboo to talk to strangers. Everybody's hustling. The streets are paved with terror, the city a prison for the soul. The car, a box, transports lonely people from the box where they sleep to the box where they work, and then back to the box where they sleep. Americans relate to each other as drivers of other cars. The only good driver is the one who takes another road. People killed on freeways are casualties of a war every bit as fucked up as Vietnam. 231. The streets are for business, not people. You can't sit in a restaurant without buying food, you can't read magazines in a store, you gotta buy, move on, move on. What if you're in the middle of the city and suddenly you have to take a shit? Tough shit. We are liberating the city, turning the streets into our living rooms. We live, work, eat, play and sleep together with our friends on the streets. Power is our ability to stand on a street corner and do nothing. We are creating youth ghettos in every city, luring into the streets everyone who is bored at home, school, or work. And everyone is looking for something to do. For us, empty pockets means liberation from draft cards, checkbooks, credit cards, registration papers. We are close to our naked bodies. The hippie area becomes the first mass alternative to the American urban prison. Liberated neighborhoods are a great threat to capitalist city life. So the forces of death, business community, cops, and politicians conspire to wipe us out. An entire battery of laws, genocidal laws against the young, makes social life in the streets a crime. If you don't hand cop documentary proof of who you are, you can be arrested. To the state, empty pockets means vagrancy. Watching the world from a street corner is loitering. 232. Hitchhiking is a crime. It's against the law to panhandle, to rap to a crowd in the streets, to give out free food in the streets, to stop traffic. Playing a harmonica in the streets is illegal in Venice, California. 2 friends of mine were just arrested for the high political crime of pissing in the street. One was put into a mental hospital. Underage kids caught on the streets are hauled straight to juvenile court. And when all else fails, they establish a curfew, a Nazi law designed to prevent us from getting together. These laws are designed to strike fear in the youth community. Although they exist on the books everywhere, they are enforced only in the ghetto. CPS patrol the hippie areas the way they patrol black communities, the way American soldiers patrol Vietnamese villages. Everyone is a likely enemy. But the main strategy for destroying the free spirit is business. Psychedelic stores try to steal the culture by selling fake artifacts to an emotion-starved outside world. Camera-toting American tourists come through in buses and on foot, snapping pictures, laughing, squealing, pointing at us. The streets turn into a hustle, a business section. We never know whom to trust. Burn artists and undercover cops flood the place, making it unsafe to buy or sell dope on the street. 233. We become an island in a capitalist sea, attacked and infiltrated from inside and outside. The death culture tries to destroy our life force and restructure the youth ghetto in its own image. We lack space in our own community to breathe, conspire, celebrate, grow. It is a war for land. Our survival depends on our ability to drive out the psychedelic exploiters, the invading pigs and the politicians, and create youth communities where dropouts from middle-class America can live. Our goal is to create fires, blackouts, subway stoppages, strikes, and snowstorms, because only in crisis does liberation come to a city. People meet their neighbors for the first time while watching their apartment houses burn down. When the subway rumbles along, everyone acts as if no one else is aboard. As soon as there's a breakdown, people start talking to strangers. During snowstorms, New York is a playground, an amusement park. Crisis brings liberation to a city. The revolution declares all land titles null and void. We are urban and rural liberators, seizing land for the people. No more I own it. People who believe they can own natural resources, industries, or land are really candidates for mental institutions. We will bring the war to the suburbs. The middle class creates suburbs as a sanctuary from the fire of the city. Children raised in the suburbs are treated as mentally and physically retarded. If we are not safe in our communities, why should corporate executives be safe in theirs? We'll get our own tourist buses, steal cameras, and ride through the suburbs squealing, laughing, snapping and pointing fingers. We will take the revolution to Scarsdale. In a revolution there are no sanctuaries. 234. 40. We cannot be co-opted because we want everything. Revolution is profitable. So the capitalists try to sell it. The money pimps take the best things our hearts and minds produce, turn them into consumer products with a price tag, and then sell them back to us as merchandise. They take our symbols, drenched with blood from the streets, and make them chic. They own our music, the music produced by our suffering, our pain, the collective unconscious of our community. They put our music on records and in dance halls priced so high that we can't even afford to hear it. Paisley rock promoters create fenced-in rock festivals, and pigs use tear gas and mace to keep us out. Beware the psychedelic businessman who talks love on his way to Chase Manhattan. He grows his hair long and puts on a brightly colored shirt because that's where it's at, the money, that is. He has a big pile of cash and a short soul. A hip capitalist is a pig capitalist. The hip capitalists have some allies within the revolutionary community, long hairs who work as intermediaries between the kids on the street and the millionaire businessman. Beware the long hair who says he's more revolutionary than thou because he's beyond politics. Beware the guru who thinks that his thing, be it Scientology, astrology, meditation, vegetarianism, rock music, or pacifism, will make the revolution all by itself. Beware the long hair who lets himself get ripped off day after day rather than get bad vibrations. Beware the long hair who defends the long hair. Busy 235. Ness man, shit, man, Bill Graham is just doing his own thing, making lots of bread. They are traitors to their long hair. All these tensions within the youth culture are reaching the boiling point because we are creating liberated areas for dropouts in every city and town, and because a community that doesn't control its own economic base is helpless in the face of the man. Haight-Ashbury, the first mass experiment at an urban youth ghetto, floundered because it had a communist ethic built upon a capitalist material base. Love cannot exist without economic equality. In our community each man is his own brother's keeper. Our youth ghettos must have a communal economy so we can live with one another, trading and bartering what we need. A free community without money. We will organize our own record companies, publishing houses, and tourist companies so profit will come back into the community for free food, free rent, free medical care, free space, free dope, free living, community bail funds. Thousands of us have moved from the cities into the country to create communes. Dig it? The communes will bring food into the city in exchange for services which the urban communes will bring to the country. We will declare war against landlords and liberate homes and apartment buildings for people who live in them. We will police ourselves and arm ourselves against the pigs who come into our communities to wipe us out. We are creating our own institutions which will gradually replace the dying institutions of America. Our media, the underground press, both creates and reflects our new consciousness. The establishment press. 236. Reflects the irrelevant, dying, and repressive institutions with which we are at war. The attack on our press is the attack on our right to think for ourselves. To destroy our culture they must destroy our media. And to protect our culture we must protect our press against pig harassment, obscenity busts, and everything else. The underground press is the beating heart of the community. We will expropriate all businessmen. All the nice products the hip businessmen have been packaging and selling are, in reality, dynamite which will blow up in their hands. Blow off all their fucking fingers. Blow the motherfuckers all to kingdom come. Dig the Woodstock Music and Art Festival at White Lake, NY, 450,000 freaks came to claim what was theirs, and the capitalists couldn't keep them out. Our joyous army overran the fences that were meant to separate us from our music. And the capitalist pig didn't dare wage war to retrieve his rock profits. We instinctively shared what we had. There was no fear or selfishness. For 3 days we dominated the land and governed ourselves. We set up free kitchens to fuck over the commercial food exploiter. We got close together to keep off the rain. We looked at our numbers and realized our power. It was a spontaneous triumph of anarchy. It inspires us to realize we cannot be defeated. After the White Lake demonstration of power, tickets are as obsolete as the Fillmore East. We will demolish the rock palaces. We will rip down the fences. We will rip off the rip-off artists. We will let our music free. We will govern ourselves. 237. The pigs came with gas and clubs to keep us out of the Pentagon. The pigs came with gas and clubs to keep us from celebrating life in Chicago. The pigs came with gas and shotguns to destroy a People's Park in Berkeley. What would have happened if 450,000 would have massed in front of the Pentagon? How about 450,000 in the streets of Chicago? What if 450,000 went to Berkeley to liberate People's Park? What would you do if 450,000 freaks marched into your town? When the schools close down for good in the next few years, millions of free young people will overwhelm every city and town in America. We're on our way, motherfuckers. Our politics is our music, our smell, our skin, our hair, our warm naked bodies, our drugs, our energy, our underground papers, our vision. Our very existence is a threat to the international balance of power. 240. We cannot be co-opted. Because we want everything. 41. We are all Eldridge Cleaver. America makes the classic mistake of all dying societies, she underestimates her own children. She thinks she can silence us through fear and punishment. You can jail a revolutionary but you cannot jail the revolution, proclaimed Bobby Seale, national chairman of the Black Panther Party, as he was jailed without bail on a frame-up conspiracy to murder rap, becoming the Panthers' 48th political prisoner in 1 year. "You're a pigi, you're a punky, you will die," shouted White Panther John Sinclair, pointing at the undercover narc and the judge who had just sentenced him to 9% to 10 years in jail for possession of 2 joints. 241. Once upon a time we thought we could end poverty, racism, and war by nonviolent sit-ins and moral pleas. The days of innocence are over. 4 years of fighting experience have taught us bitter lessons. We live in a land which has declared war on its own children, on the future. We live in the midst of a dying beast that will kill anything that moves. To be young is a crime. Any crowd of kids automatically constitutes a riot. The law has become illegal. Our bravest brothers are beaten and killed in the streets, exiled to strange lands, or thrown into detention camps called jails. Everything beautiful we build is smashed by pigs' clubs. We get our education in courtrooms, not classrooms. We are faced with two choices: obey or perish. We are fighting for our very survival as a generation. Every young person has at least one personal atrocity story. Mine are about typical, 2 30-day jail sentences, another on appeal, a phony dope bust, admitted federal wiretapping, an undercover cop, 24-hour-a-day police tail, travel restrictions, $25,000 bail/ransom, and a federal conspiracy to riot indictment. A young person without an arrest record has been living his life in a closet. Their goal is to tie our hands with legal self-defense so that we have no time for revolution, and to make some of us an example in order to frighten and silence you. The purpose of undercover cops is to make us dis 242. Trustful of every new person we meet. The purpose of wiretapping is to make us afraid to talk to each other on the phone. They try to teach us cynicism, because cynicism is death to the revolutionary spirit. The goal of repression is to smash and destroy the trust, optimism, and spontaneity that inspires us to revolution. Fuck 'em. I hope they have a special Jerry Rubin department in the CIA, staffed with bureaucrats, files, computers, psychiatrists, pharmacologists, palm readers, astrologists, soothsayers, and maybe a general or two. We know America is a paper tiger. Barefoot Viet Cong are kicking the shit out of her. Tiny Cuba, just 90 miles off America's shores, broke away from the empire. Every Cuban and every Vietnamese, to the last man, is ready to kill and die for their country's freedom. No oppressor can defeat a united people. Barbed wire fences, pig clubs, tear gas, and political arrests are the dying spasms of a government that has lost the support of the people whose lives it tries to run. By attacking us, the man brings us together. We find that we have only each other. We discover ourselves capable of impulsive heroic actions. We discover the love and brotherhood of a community that is fighting together for its own survival. America is falling apart. The alternative is revolution or catastrophe. The revolution has replaced the church as the country's moral authority. The revolution has replaced the economy as the way of self-expression among kids. 243. The revolution has replaced the schools as the country's educational institution. The middle class pleads with us, stop. 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 You will bring fascism down on all of us. They sympathize with us. Hope you don't go to jail, Jerry. Let me know what I can do. Fuck sympathy. We need brothers, not mothers. The respectable middle class must begin wholesale and collective civil disobedience to clog the courtrooms and the jails. If we are united, we cannot be defeated. As Eldridge said, there are more people than pigs. We freaks must develop whatever weapons we need to survive as a generation. If they throw tear gas at us, we'll throw it back. If they shoot at us, we'll shoot back. Guns. Karate. Explosives. LSD in the water supply. Togetherness. Collectives. Love. Would the pigs have dared to invade People's Park if the Berkeley brothers and sisters were all armed and ready to kill and be killed? What if 1,000 persons show up at the next trial to answer to the name of Eldridge Cleaver, John Sinclair, or Dave Dellinger? 244. I am Eldridge Cleaver. No, I am Eldridge Cleaver. No, I am Eldridge Cleaver. Everyone stands with clenched fist and screams, I am Eldridge Cleaver. We are all Eldridge Cleaver. An attack on any one of us is an attack on all of us. We are all one. 245. 42. The Viet Cong are everywhere. There is no such thing as an anti-war movement. That is a concept created by the mass media to fuck up our minds. What's happening is energy exploding in thousands of directions and people declaring themselves free. Free from property hang-ups, free from success fixations, free from positions, titles, names, hierarchies, responsibilities, schedules, rules, routines, regular habits. I'm not interested in the so-called anti-war movement. I'm interested in Detroit, Newark, campus disruptions, everyone smoking pot, people learning to speak out and be different. The capitalist money bureaucratic imperialist middle class boring exploitative military word structure is crumbling. The world laughs at America's clumsy, bully attempt to defeat peasant warriors called Viet Cong in a never-never land called Vietnam. And in America we are all learning how to become Viet Cong. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. If there was one lesson learned at the Pentagon and at Chicago, it is that the young people didn't give a fuck about the political theories, ideologies, plans, organizations, meetings or negotiations with the cops. The activists came to act out of their own sense of what was real. The only vanguard is the vanguard in action. All those hundreds of hours of bullshit meetings were just that bullshit. Better we should have spent the time listening to the Stones. An anti-war movement is self-defeating and a waste of time because it is negative. People want to be for, not against. We don't need an anti-war movement, we need an American liberation movement. 246. America is trapped within her own contradictions, and it's a joy to watch Huntley Brinkley and see America squirm. The products of America are not interested in inheriting and protecting a world made for them. We are interested in creating a new world. The Vietnam War is an old man's war. Old men are trying to impose old ideas like property, racism, military force, big countries controlling little countries upon the new world that is bursting forth in this century. Ah, that new world. The people looting in Detroit. The teenagers who spit at the Pentagon and redecorated it with urine, and slogans like, Che Lives. The guerrillas carrying Che's actions throughout Latin America, Asia, Africa. The thousands of young people in America beginning to ask why and finding out that their elders have no answers, they have only power and age. That's not an anti-war movement, those are movements for liberation, for freedom. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. All these movements for liberation add up to a massive energy force which weakens the ability of the U.S. to carry out the war and all her other decrepit policies. I support everything which puts people into motion, which creates a disruption and controversy, which creates chaos and rebirth. Adlai Stevenson made me a radical in 1952 by picking up my hopes for change. The system crushed those hopes. Eugene McCarthy has trained the street demonstrators of tomorrow in the futility of party politics. The revolution is taking place everywhere. The stable middle-class home is falling apart. The church cannot attract its own children. 247. The schools are becoming centers of rebellion, and the streets are theaters of political action. I approve of letters to the editor, peace candidates and peace referendums, marches, symbolic sit-ins, disruptive sit-ins, disruptive street demonstrations and sabotage. That is guerrilla war in America, everyone doing his own thing, a symphony of varied styles, rebellion for every member of the family, each to his own alienation. The respectable middle class debates Nixon while we try to pull down his pants. A good question, can America be changed through peaceful transition? Can the beast be tamed within her own rules and regulations? Within the electoral system, within law and order, within police permits and regulations, within the boundaries of middle-class America? Can a society which makes distinctions between rich and poor, white and black, employers and employees, landlords and tenants, teachers and students, reform itself? Is it interested in reform, or just interested in eliminating nuisance? What's needed is a new generation of nuisances. A new generation of people who are freaky, crazy, irrational, sexy, angry, irreligious, childish, and mad. People who burn draft cards and dollar bills, people who burn MA and doctoral degrees, people who say, to hell with your goals. 248. People who lure the youth with music, pot, and LSD, people who proudly carry Viet Cong flags, people who redefine reality, who redefine the norm, people who wear funny costumes, people who see property as theft, people who say fuck on television, people who break with the status role title consumer game, people who have nothing material to lose but their bodies. LL. The war in Vietnam will be stopped by the United States when the embarrassment of carrying on the war becomes greater than the embarrassment of admitting defeat. A lot of things embarrass America, a lot of things embarrass a country so dependent on images. Youth alienation, campus demonstrations and disruptions, peace candidates, underground railroads of draft dodgers to Canada, trips to banned countries, thousands of people giving the middle finger to the Pentagon over national television. We can end this war, we've got America on the run. We've combined youth, music, sex, drugs, and rebellion with treason, and that's a combination hard to beat. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What the Socialist Workers and the Communist Party, with their conversions of Marxism into a natural science, fail to understand is that language does not radicalize people. What changes people is the emotional involvement of action. What breaks through apathy and complacency are confrontations and actions, the creation of new situations which previous mental pictures do not explain, polarizations which define people into rapidly new situations. The struggle against the war is freeing American youth from authority hang-ups and teaching us democracy through action. 249. Every draft card burning is a body blow to Mother America because its impact sweeps throughout the elementary schools with the message, "Baby, something's happening and your teachers don't know what it is, and the draft is not sacred or from heaven, or from Washington or Jefferson, it is up to you." The movement is a school and its teachers are the Fugs/Dylan/Beatles/Ginsburg/mass media/hippies/students fighting cops in Berkeley/blood on draft records/Seitan/jail. Repression turns demonstration/protests into wars, actors into heroes, masses of individuals into a community. Repression eliminates the bystander, the neutral observer, the theorist, it forces everyone to pick a side. A movement cannot grow without repression. The left needs an attack from the center and the right. Life is theater and we are the guerrillas attacking the shrines of authority, from the priest, to the holy dollar, to the two-party system, zapping people's minds and putting them through changes in actions in which everyone is emotionally involved. The street is the stage. You are the star of the show and everything you were once taught is up for grabs. The long-haired beast smoking pot, evading the draft and stopping traffic during demonstrations is a hell of a bigger threat to the system than the so-called politicos with their leaflets of support for the Viet Cong and the coming working class revolution. Politics is how you live your life, not whom you vote for. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The most important political conflict in the United States today is the generational conflict. We are all under the influence of a collective historical unconscious. 250. Communism to us means not Stalin, but the heroic romantic Fidel/Che/Viet Cong. Hitler to us represents words on paper. We are optimistic and idealistic about the future. Our 1984 will be great. The economy is rich, overproduction is the problem, now everyone can dig life, and we know it. Life can be a trip. We want a communal world where the imagination runs supreme, and where human institutions respond to human needs. Feeling and emotion will be unsuppressed. Everything will be free. People will go to museums to look at dollar bills. There will be no nations, only rich communities and rich cultures. This generational movement cuts across class and race lines. The generational revolt in America is not explained by Freud or Marx. It is a war between historical generations, and the future belongs to us because America is defending institutions and ideas like ownership and nation, and these institutions no longer respond to needs. We did not build CBS, the Democratic Party or the Catholic Church, and we want no place in them. Vietnam is a case of the past trying to suppress the future. The American economy has rendered white middle-class youth and black working-class youth useless, because we are not needed to make the economy run. Uselessness breeds revolution. The only exciting and meaningful thing to do in America today is to disrupt her institutions and build new ones. Asterisk asterisk. Subvert. That's the task of every young person. Spread ideas that undercut the consistent world of America, and then top it off by burning her symbols from draft cards to flags to dollar bills. 251. We must alienate middle-class America. We must get middle-class America all whipped up emotionally. America suffers from a great cancer, it's called apathy. Moral persuasion may work on the guilt feelings of the American middle class, it may even win his mind or vote, but how are you going to get him off his ass? Alienating people is a necessary process in getting them to move. Mr. America, the war is at home. It is not on Huntley Brinkley, it is right outside your window. Wait, now it's inside your living room in your kid's head. When we were simply marching and petitioning and making moral pleas to the government to end the war, the good hard common sense soul of America knew we were only kids, that we were not serious. Americans know how hard it is to move City Hall. Ah, come on off it, you ain't going to end the war that way, was the truck driver's likely response to vigils, marches, peace candidates, and peace literature. Instinctively, the American knew more about his government than did the anti-war movement. He knew that it was way up there, made up of good-for-nothing politicians, hard to reach and then reachable only through the language of power and violence. When the movement moved into the streets, and began to act in the dialect of power, when the movement got tough, we broke away all those barriers preventing us from reaching the average guy. America understands Eldridge Cleaver and America understands peace demonstrators fighting in the streets, and that's why we are much more dangerous than 100 Martin Luther Kings. Disruption of American society is becoming about as frequent as Yankee planes over Vietnam. 252. Persuasion follows the disruption. Crisis replaces the coffee break. 43. Scenario lore: the future/Yippie land. Every high school and college in the country will close with riots and sabotage, and cops will circle the campuses, standing shoulder to shoulder. The schools belong to the pigs. Millions of young people will surge into the streets of every city, dancing, singing, smoking pot, fucking in the streets, tripping, burning draft cards, stopping traffic. The Pentagon will send troops to fight spreading guerrilla wars in Laos, Thailand, Indonesia, India, the Congo, Bolivia, South Africa, Brazil, France. High government officials will defect to the Yippies. The State Department will discover its highest ranks infested with the Yippie SYMPS. Black cops will join the Black and White Liberation Army in the streets. High school students will seize radio, TV, and newspaper offices across the land. Police stations will blow up. Revolutionaries will break into jails and free all the prisoners. Clerical workers will axe their computers and put chewing gum into the machines. Army platoons and the National Guard will desert to the revolution, bringing their guns with them. Workers will seize their factories and begin running them communally, without profit. Short hairs will become long hairs overnight. Yippie helicopter pilots will bomb police positions with LSD gas. The Pentagon will strafe Yippie bases, and will shoot the planes out of the sky. Kids will lock their parents out of their suburban homes and turn them into guerrilla bases, storing arms. We'll break into banks and join the bank tellers in take-a-page all the money and burning it in gigantic bonfires in the middle of the city. 253. Previous revolutions aimed at seizure of the state's highest authority, followed by the takeover of the means of production. The Youth International Revolution will begin with mass breakdown of authority, mass rebellion, total anarchy in every institution in the Western world. Tribes of long hairs, blacks, armed women, workers, peasants, and students will take over. The Yippie dropout myth will infiltrate every structure of America. The revolution will shock itself by discovering that it has friends everywhere, friends just waiting for the moment. At community meetings all over the land, Bob Dylan will replace the national anthem. There will be no more jails, courts, or police. The White House will become a crash pad for anybody without a place to stay in Washington. The world will become one big commune with free food and housing, everything shared. All watches and clocks will be destroyed. Barbers will go to rehabilitation camps where they will grow their hair long. There will be no such crime as stealing because everything will be free. The Pentagon will be replaced by an LSD experimental farm. There will be no more schools or churches because the entire world will become one church and school. People will farm in the morning, make music in the afternoon and fuck wherever and whenever they want to. The United States of America will become a tiny yippie island in a vast sea of yippie land love. 256.